Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mai, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Well, you heard the story in the news. Housing should be a priority for the next administration. Cabinet Office latest housing report revealed the average house price on the Isle of Man is nearly £400,000. And more importantly, story about the number of houses being sold for less than 250,000 went down by 2%. Just 14% of all sales are under 250,000. Well, any thoughts on this? Housing is at the centre of lots and lots of issues on the Isle of Man. It's the reason lots of young people leave the Isle of Man or don't come back to the Isle of Man. It's the reason that lots of young couples are trapped in private rental and maybe for the rest of their lives. And it's stopping people getting onto the housing ladder. Quite what we do about it, everybody wrings their hands and says something must be done. And yet, well, there we are. If you can sort this out, I suggest either that you stand for the House of Keys or call 66 13 68. Tell me all about it. Robert's first on today. Hi, Robert.
How you doing?
Well, very well. What about yourself?
We're going okay. A little bit House on the Prairie on the TV, but not too bad. My question was, what was the calamity over the weekend with Golla's Gag and all the internet seemed to go down?
Don't know what you're talking about. What happened?
Well, someone texted in from America, and because you use a Windows system instead of a Mac, all the system went down for at least 10 minutes. Phil Gorn was looking around for CDs, which was a mess, and hardly any of the text got read out.
Wow. Well, I'll have to pass that on to our head of IT because that's way above my pay grade, Robert.
Well, I did contact Chris Thomas, and he was interested in getting some Macs for you. I know the Macs Neo are quite good, so if you have a chat with him next time he's on.
Yeah, I mean, what I do know is that most broadcast, we don't use Macs, we use Windows.
Yeah, I know you're quite reticent on that, but I mean, Macs cannot be hacked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's your choice.
Well, it's us and the rest of the broadcast industry. Very few people use Macs. I know they're used by all the trendy people for films and things like that. Who's that?
Soma FM use Macs. So you know Soma FM?
Who's that again?
Have you ever heard of them? Soma FM. They're a really good radio station.
They've passed me by, to be quite honest, Robert.
Okay, well, we'll leave it for now, but I'd recommend having a chat with Chris Thomas about getting some Macs in.
I'll pass that on to our head of IT.
Just for news.
All right. Thanks for calling today. It's 9 minutes past 12. New one on me, but then again, technology really does pass me by. I was happy with records and tapes. Let's go. So we had lots of messages on Friday, by the way, for the open line on Friday, talking about the assisted dying bill as well. H dropped a note in and just said, what effect will other people's ability to choose assisted dying have on people who don't want it? And we were talking about H takes the religious view and just says many don't believe in an angry God. Who does? That they have to please, and every case is different. They're not saving lives, they're forcing others to suffer to make themselves feel better. This is H's view. The time to kick off is if there are moves towards anything which might disadvantage other vulnerable groups, which may not happen. Denying vulnerable, terminal ill people relief from suffering is perverse, selfish, says H. And if it's none of your business, it won't affect you, says that. And a note in from 645 who said, it doesn't matter what we do because China will keep opening more coal power plants. This is John in Oncombe. We're talking about, obviously, the big story at the moment, and will continue to be a big story, are the two proposed wind farms, one on the Isle of Man and one offshore. The huge one off the east coast and the smaller one at Eristane in the south of the Isle of Man. So, that's John in Onken. Doesn't matter what we do, China's going to keep on opening more power stations. They're painting the lines on the road straight onto the potholes. It says, apparently, 696, this is in front of King Charles III's, the Lord of Man's visit tomorrow on the Isle of Man. Everything's getting painted. Is it true? They always say that the royal family thinks that everywhere smells of new paint. A note in from 100 who said, global warming is a scam. Well, that's your opinion. 100 said, your last caller must be listening to the BBC. Try actually doing some research instead of blindly following the narrative. Well, there again, that's your opinion. The other person had another opinion. And the other thing is, what counts as research these days? David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. I just want to thank the Energy Group for the discussion on Friday. I went out to Laxey, the Workman's Institute, the first time I've ever been there. It was that hot upstairs, like we had to go into the cellar, which was nice and cool. I met a lot of people who I've never met before. And, of course, they said, aren't you a friend of Andy Wint? I said, well, they say I am, but I'll be talking about it on Monday. So they'll all be listening to you and me talking about this issue there. And from what I got was, because I said to them, I'm not leading them too much, I will put words in their mouth, but Annie, what are we actually doing on the island? And do you know what? We're not doing anything to go forward, are we? Although we've got PV panels at the post office. How much is that making us? Or how much do we know anything?
Well, the good news is you're always on at me to get the MUA on. I've invited the MUA and we'll get a couple of dates together and just chat about. I mean, the thing, because remember the MUA, and you know this full well, they're obviously in charge of electricity and water and sewerage, and of course they pipe in the gas from that pipe from the west coast.
Yeah.
They bring that in. So the MUA is a big thing, but it will be nice to. And of course, the other thing is we don't know, what the politicians say about what the MUA can and can't do, David. Yeah,
and that's what we need. Actually, we need direction, don't we? Why do we put politicians in there to make decisions? And that's the real thing. Even if they're good, bad, or indifferent, at least we get a decision, don't we? We've done things in the past. They may be always great, but we've done them. And we were talking on Friday about all sorts of things, turbines. And the biggest laugh ever is that people are fed up calling them windmills. They're not windmills, they're turbines.
Right. What was the mood of the meeting like?
There wasn't many there because it was a hot day. There was about 10, 12 there. I went about 5 o'clock because I had to go early because I was going to lunch somewhere else. But it was interesting. Shook his hand and I said, you're not going to appreciate this, but I'm the real David Quirk. I live here. But his family live here as well. Do you know what I mean? And I've never met the guy in my life. So I've ticked the box off. Do you know that thing when you've got to do 50 things before you pop your clogs?
Right.
So that's one of them.
You met another David Quirk.
I met my doppelganger, what do they call him?
Yes.
Onto it. But I want to complain now about there's on Blackberry Lane. I cut the grass at the weekend, and I can't believe on the field, not for him anyway.
Yeah.
There's 300 cones up and down Blackberry Lane, and this is gospel. This on Sunday, the Cushigs going from Government House to Corporal's Garage. There was about 20 of them there, right? So I've been down before. I thought I'll take a picture of it and send it to you. They've all been thrashed, and the issue I've got with that, thrashing them is no good. You've got to pull these Cushigs out because otherwise next year they'll just grow again. And they haven't. There's one that's not been done. I'll take a picture of it later on and I'll flash it to you. And when I don't know where you're having a Mannin Line tomorrow too, are you?
Yeah, we'll be on. Don't worry, yeah.
Oh, that's right, because I won't be listening to himself, because at the end of the day, I want to know what he's here for. Is he coming here to tell us we've done good, or we should be doing this, or whatever? I don't know. But the only thing you can do, if you want to invite a royal, you definitely get the place tarted up, don't you, on the promenade? And the amount of cones we must have now. So, what's his name? Jason from down south. We must have 1 million cones stashed about somewhere.
Well, there must be a royal visit budget somewhere that they get into when this happens.
Well, that's the other issue, Andy, too. I was going to ask. I'll throw the question out there, too. How much does that cost us to work on a Sunday? Not us, the only people, but who put the cones out, all the barriers out, diggers running around, jet washing the Parliament building, tarting up the airport. I was talking to somebody at the weekend. They said the airport's had a bit of a facelift and a bit of a spring clean, but why aren't we doing it anyway? It should be an annual event, shouldn't it? And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well,
hey,
go on.
How's your panels doing at your place? You must be saving us.
Oh, they're roaring on these days. Yeah, the solar panels are roaring on.
Yeah, and mine are full, just to annoy people, because somebody said the other day, I'm fed up with you coming on and telling me about your panels. And I said, well, that's what I would want to tell people, because I want to tell people, and I'm going to send you some stuff, I don't know when I have it in a minute, about what's happening with the MEA, and I'm glad you've got it on there, because I think the politicians have got to be really careful bringing about this green initiative thing, is it becomes an anti-competitive practice towards the industry.
Right.
And I do hope some of the industry people come on to you and tell you, why can't I sell SOS heat pumps, boilers, all sorts of different things, PV panels, and why have I got to be restricted because the government says, you can't do this unless you do so with somebody else.
Okay.
We've got to listen to Manx Radio or like it.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Thanks for calling today.
See you, boy. Ta-ra.
17 minutes after 12. Well, tomorrow, the King Charles III, the Lord of Man, will be on the Isle of Man. There are lots of road closures. In Douglas, between 6 o'clock tomorrow morning and 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, Douglas Prom between Summerhill and Royal Terrace, Port Jack, closed, diversions via Port Jack, Strathallan Road and Summerhill. Summerhill Link Road is closed. Bucks Road is closed. There are diversions for southbound traffic via Circular Road, Peel Road and Lord Street. Northbound via Victoria Street, Derby Road and the Woodburn Road. Finch Road will be closed, Hill Street will be closed, and Myrtle Street will be closed. There are parking prohibitions on Douglas Prom between the Queen's Hotel and the MER depot, the Summerhill Link Road, Bucks Road, Finch Road, Hill Street, Myrtle Street, Stanley Mount, St George's Street, Hope Street, Summerhill, Blackberry Lane, that's why the Cushugs have gone, Mount Havelock and Strathallan Road for tomorrow. So if you're aiming to get anywhere tomorrow, pack a lunch. That's all I can say. Let's get to the lines again. I think John's with us now. Hello, John.
Hi. Just a quick warning to people if they want to travel to Tunisia with a Manx passport.
Yeah.
And I know the Manx passports have got British passport, British citizens. My two granddaughters have just come back, one aged 20, one aged 25. When they got to Tunisia, they got detained for over an hour because they needed a visa.
Wow. Did they know that before they went? I mean...
No. It cost them about 30 or 40 pounds to get this visa, and it took over an hour. They were detained at the airport.
Did they go on? I mean, did they just go, or was it on their own, or was it a package tour? Was it something?
No, they went with Jet 2, I believe.
Right, and Jet 2 didn't say anything.
Nope.
Right. Okay. So
it's just a warning. I think one of my granddaughters is going to go into the passport office today or tomorrow to ask if the passport people know about this.
Okay, right. Well, thanks for tipping us off about that. So if you're heading to Tunisia, you need a visa.
if you've got a Manx, if it's a British passport, British citizens but with Isle of Man on the front.
Right. So if it's a Manx passport, you need a visa, and presumably you possibly be able to get that before you go there. You don't have to sit at the airport.
I should imagine so, but where you'd get it from, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was also told that if you go to Vietnam, you need a visa with a Manx passport as well.
Okay. All right,
So,
well, I appreciate it. Are you going to Tunisia on holiday yourself, John?
No, thank you. I've been to Bulgaria and I had no problems.
Okay. All right. Thanks for calling today. It's 12:20. What do you think about this story about the fact that average house prices on the Isle of Man £400,000 and that housing should be a priority for the next administration? Paul Chase is from Financial Options, and he says something he'd like to see addressed by the next government.
We're still seeing a lot of people successfully purchase property. I think that is what is also driving the market, is the fact that there are so many people buying properties at the moment. The banks have increased their sort of lending multiples, so we've now got one bank that can lend up to 6 times a single income, and certainly if you're in a position where you are looking for a joint mortgage, obviously they can lend more. So people are still managing to achieve that. I suppose the real question is against wage growth and whether that sort of sustains the increases in the property values that we are seeing. But certainly it is being driven by a lot of different factors, one of which being quite a lot of people looking to relocate to the island as well.
Do you think the banks offering more mortgage options is an acknowledgement that it is slightly more difficult for people now with these increased prices?
I think so. Done other things as well. I mean, all the banks now typically will lend up over a period of 40 years. I think they're just being realistic in terms of the property values and assisting people to try and actually achieve the mortgage that they're required to do that. So yeah, I think the banks are kind of realising that position, and I think the banks are being much more realistic with the lending that they're doing and basing a lot of it on affordability and the demonstration of that affordability.
And one of the things that's come out of the report is that the number of house transactions over the past year has fallen by around 200. So even though the market is still booming and it is still busy, it has decreased slightly. And do you think that could be as a consequence of the house price increase?
I think it's due to property supply and demand, really. There is only a finite number of properties on the Isle of Man. We're maybe not building as many as we should be. I know there's a couple of very big housing developments coming along in the next sort of 18 to 24 months, which is great and very much needed on the island. But I think it really is a sort of a legacy thing from the fact that there's been a huge amount of property transactions over the last sort of 5 years since COVID. And literally there is only a finite amount of properties on the island. So I think there's probably a lot of people looking to buy, but it may not be the properties for them to actually purchase.
Well, this is a vexed question, and if it involves you and it gets very personal, it can be distressing, debilitating, not fun at all. When you obviously buying a house is the single biggest financial transaction you'll make all year. I mean, unless you're an eccentric millionaire, then it can cause all sorts of problems. But how do we get out of this then? I mean, we know how we got in it, but how do we get out of it? The price of houses just seem to rise and rise and rise, and over 10 years you'll never lose money in bricks and mortar. But how do we get people onto that property ladder? Because you may start to engender societal unrest if young people cannot get onto the property ladder, and particularly young families looking for somewhere to raise a family. Then that surely can't be good for the Isle of Man. I'm not suggesting social engineering, but I just wonder what you think that we do. Got a note in a WhatsApp in that just said you don't need a visa to visit Tunisia. Tell that gentleman's relatives that the property situation isn't helped by the amount of holiday lets on the Isle of Man. Well, that's just something that's risen up in quantity over the past few years. We've always had holiday lets. We've always had properties you can rent to come on holiday. And we pitch ourselves as a tourist destination. Let's not forget that. Does it affect it that much, do you think? Let's get to Bonzo with us now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello, yes. Just briefly comment on the housing market. Of course, the housing market at the moment has historically low interest rates. And when I and my then wife, we got our first place, and then not that soon after that, I think it was Norman Lamont who decided to play fast and loose with exchange rates and interest rates. And we ended up at one point paying 18% on our mortgage.
That's what you call stress, Bonzo.
Yes, it was stress. I mean, we were, working every hour God's ends and playing quiz machines when we had when we had some time available. And the building society used to look at us curiously and come along with pound coins in a change bag and think we'd been jemmying it in fruit machines or something. But we needed to do that, and even then it went down to, when it was then for a couple of years, about 12%, 13%. That was between 12 and 14%. I seem to remember. It was pretty brutal, and there was no way. I think a lot of people with mortgages that they've had in the past 20 years could survive anything like sort of 8% interest rates. So, I know your pain, but also, of course, the market has started to adjust it by having 40-year mortgages. Now, when you think that the average sort of house buyer, the first-time buyer, is now in the sort of mid-30s, oh, great, yeah, 40-year mortgage, fine. I've been drawing, I might have been drawing my pension. But it's an awful long time to have to consider paying a mortgage, especially without sort of tax breaks or anything. So it's a big. It deserves a huge series of big programs. I can't really talk about that here. It's far too tight for time. But did you hear Perspective yesterday?
Yes, I did.
And apropos, Robert was saying about somehow gear going down and all the digital stuff deciding to have a snooze for a bit. Of course, now we have the revival of vinyl. Why can't we go back to the old days? I started off in student radio in the land before time. Not long after we got rid of pound, shillings and pence and stuff. And so I would be there queuing up records on the wheels of steel, which were steel and round, and they were very, very heavy. So to actually queue up the record, so you'd move it around a bit and move it back, of course. It took a fair amount of effort.
Well, I'll let you into a secret, Bonzo. In this whole radio station, we have one turntable left, and that's used in the archive to transcribe old LPs. Apart from that, everything else is digital. There are a few CD players here and there, but only one record player in the entire place.
Well, as Beck said, what you really need is two turntables and a microphone.
Which student radio station were you at, Bonzo?
Warwick.
University Radio Warwick.
Yeah. W963, yeah.
My word.
Which managed to broadcast to about 300 yards. I know, it went over to Westwood. At one time. Yeah. So, yes, we had, and the turntables had this sort of great big gear stick to actually go from 33 to 45. Clunk, clunk. It's like sort of driving a World War II sort of Bedford truck or something.
Yeah, I remember
and then,
them well.
Course, we had to. Yes, and then we had things called cartridges, which for anyone under about 50. You used to have these machines which had these sort of big kind of tape things that had tape lids on which you could record adverts and jingles. So you would have a set of about 4 or 5 stack of these cartridges, which you would then have another stack of your cartridges, which you then had to, whilst you were playing your records away, you then had to load up in the right sequence so you could fire them off. And then you'd be firing those whilst queuing up the other record, and then you'd be looking at the clock, and then you'd do your link, and you'd do your in and then sort of, repeat and stuff, or you'd be then looking through the record box, at your records, because of course the record library would never have the record that you were looking for because somebody had pinched it. Yes, and things like using the little reel-to-reel tape recorders, the viewers, and then editing that stuff on the Revoxes. Oh yeah, I'm pretty good with a scalpel and editing tape. Yeah, bring back the old days. That's what I say.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for the stroll down memory lane, Bonzo. I appreciate it.
Yes, I know. Yes, me and Mark Tiley often discuss these things.
All right. Thanks, Bonzo. Appreciate it. It's 12:30 on Manx Radio. I want to go to Barry now. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Andy. Apologies, my voice is a bit weak at the minute. But going back to the good old days would be something I suppose I'm probably talking about today. And I need to be careful about what I say and how I say it, and you probably need to guide me a little bit if I drift off. So I just want to put so we're talking taxis and we're talking taxi licensing.
Right.
And it's, I've been in the game for 25 years, and the various different cross-sections of departments that probably should be, in my opinion, involved in who gets granted a license to drive a public passenger vehicle. I'm not talking about an operator registration at this stage or necessarily a apply for hire license. I'm strictly at this stage keeping it simple. We're talking about a PPV license. So I'm not going to keep it too long, but I'm just going to say that I have a number of concerns, but at the minute I'm trying to find out facts. It's very difficult sometimes to find out facts for somebody just like me. But here's what I'm concerned about. So I will say to you, to keep it simple, so we're talking about going back to the old days. So the 2001, so the Act itself came into place in 2001. And over those years, there's been various different people, representative drivers, operators within the taxi trade, within the private hire trade, that have contacted and had meetings, private meetings with various different MHKs, with various different representatives, if you like, at a government level regarding concerns about the 2001 Act and a whole number of different issues, and what our concerns were at the time and where we felt things could go wrong unless things in time would get changed. I remember over the years I've spent far too many times, hours in too many locations having these meetings, and nothing has ever happened. So I need to put that out first of all. So I'm not just coming at this today with a viewpoint that's sort of like I'm jumping on a bandwagon here, like I'm not. But the taxi trade, lots of us are very concerned about various different things that have happened over the last 5 years. And we're talking about stories that have been in the press. We're talking about an ongoing case, which I'm not going to touch upon at all because it's an ongoing matter. I'm sure you probably know, and your listeners, with very little with very little kind of investigation, we'll be able to find out what I'm talking about. But essentially, we're talking about allegations twofold. We're talking about harassment of passengers, in some cases sexual harassment, and we're also talking about allegation where we know of a case, or certainly I know of a case of sexual attack in a taxi going back a number of years ago. And there's also one other case that I can think of as well, and I can also tell you on a day-to-day basis since the dawn of taxi meters, where the meter sits on the mirror, I can see exactly what's happened on a day-to-day basis with a very, very small minority of people I have to work alongside who are just overcharging people. Right. And it has to be said, and it has to be called out for what it is. Now, my concerns really are, I do know, because I managed to find out over the weekend, that new applications for PPV drivers for new arrivals on the island within a specific period of time, that they should be applying for work permits. I spoke to somebody last night who has been and still is very, very big in the taxi business, who would know for a fact as to how many new drivers to the island, have approached him with a work permit. His answer was none. I have concerns that the Road Transport Licensing Committee and the Work Permit Committee are not working hand in hand. I have concerns. I'm not saying this is the case. It's very difficult for me. I'm trying to do an FOI request at the minute. The website for that seems to be down. But I'm trying to find out how many work permit applications have been made by new arrivals to the Isle of Man over the last, say, 5 years in order to drive a public passenger vehicle. I'm very worried that the answer is actually going to be zero. And I also have had concerns, excuse me, Andy, again, with my voice, I've also had concerns for a very long period of time that the debarring service, the DBS check itself, is not satisfactory in all cases. Why do I say that? So 57 ripe years ago, I was born in London, and my history can go back that 57 years of my debar check, and every year, thankfully, it comes back clear, and I carry on doing as I do, and I've driven for 25 years on a badge. But that check only goes back to the time where applicants arrive in the UK. And I have concerns, and again, they're only concerns, that the RTLC are not, in cases where there's gaps in the checks for whatever reason, and I'm not going to say any reasons, but for whatever reason, that they're not actually contacting the police in the UK or any police anywhere else to try to get certificates to ensure that people coming into the taxi job have got like a long-serving good conduct. And I would also be concerned that if the police cannot be satisfied that full checks are in place, that the countries of origins of new applicants are not being contacted either.
Right.
And I would probably say that it's fair to say, again, I'm speculating here, that in some cases the countries would probably be very hesitant or couldn't be bothered to actually approve or disapprove an application for a taxi badge here in the Isle of Man. But to keep this fairly simple, I believe that my job has, certainly over the last 5 years, has been basically pulled through the mud. And that's less concerning, actually, for me than it is for the people who have actually, come failure, if you like, of what I can call rogue drivers. And I'm not making this up because this has happened. The stories have been in the news. So I'm calling as a sensible 25-year man in the job that there needs to be a suspension of all new applications for public passenger vehicle licences until such a time that the various different people involved in this, it's probably going to be the Road Transport Licensing Committee, it's probably going to be the Work Permit Committee, it's probably going to be the checks on the debarring service, and it's also going to be full and thorough checks to ensure that in all cases, all checks are complete, and we have the very, very best. It's not about, in my opinion, and I've said this a couple of times, possibly even on the radio before, the taxi trade should not be about quantity. It needs to be about quality. And I'm concerned that over the years, the public's need for more and more and more and more and more drivers has actually led to a more and more and more dangerous situation.
So, Barry, I mean, obviously I'm very concerned about the taxi industry, but I'm more concerned about the public. What is the risk to the public do you envisage?
Well, over the last 5 years, a simple little Google check will show you and anyone else who needs to see that there has been cases brought through the court. And there is a case going through the courts at the minute. There was a video circulating. I think Manx Radio ran the story. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to jeopardise any investigation, any police matters. That would be the wrong thing to do. Yep. So to me, the risk is twofold at the minute. I mean, there's always going to be various different problems within the industry. It's a huge industry, but I just worry that there's a very, very, very small percentage of drivers out there that haven't got the public interest at stake.
Right.
And this isn't. Look, the trade has been brought into jeopardy. I mean, our trade has been pulled through the mud for far too many years, and it has to be said that the politicians have never listened to the likes of me. They've never listened to the likes of Mike Birchall. They've never listened to the likes of Ray Tier. They don't listen. We've had these meetings. There's been meetings in various different departments of government where we've brought our concerns forward. And we have, and I'm not just saying that today, because these meetings have happened, and our concerns have always been brought forward. And we've always said, listen, unless something gets done, our fears are going to be that something bad is going to happen.
Barry, what do you mean when you say that they don't listen to you?
Well, nothing gets done. Nothing changes. Like, nothing ever changes. So we're still dealing with the same old 25, 26-year-old legislation, and there's parts of it that need to be modernised.
Okay.
And particularly and the most important is putting everything else that me and you have ever spoke about taxis over the years. When it comes to licensing, when it comes to the licensing of an individual who's going to sit on the side of the street and is going to bring vulnerable passengers from A to B, is going to bring young women on a Friday and Saturday night to wherever they need to be, mothers, daughters, this has to be fixed.
Okay.
This has to be fixed.
All right. Okay.
One case in a lifetime, Andy, is too much, but we've had, I can count up 3 or 4 within the last 5 years.
Okay. I just want to leave you with it. Okay, we've heard what you said, Barry, but I want to just give you a question that Jane's texted into me, and just to say, I was in a taxi the other day, and for the first time on the Isle of Man, the taxi driver was using sat-nav to find somewhere. And I just got very suspicious. The fact that a taxi driver on the Isle of Man needs to use sat-nav, is that common?
No. It's not common. So I can go back to when I started off. So 25 years ago when I'd done my test, I used to work for the council in Douglas Eastman, an electrician years ago, and I gave it all up because I knackered my back up. So I used to go around fixing the street lights, and when I struggled to do that job, I started delivering actually Chinese food around Onken, so I got a good knowledge of Onken. So that was basically going to be the areas where I decided I was going to do my apply for hire, because these were the areas I knew. But the test was very hard, actually. It was a very, very difficult test at the time. But I remember, I can't tell you exactly when, but it was probably around about 15, 16, maybe 17 years ago. There was a lot of concerns. I actually mentioned it briefly in this telephone call earlier on, where the passenger, the public decided they wanted more taxis and they wanted more drivers, because they said that they were struggling to get home on a Friday and Saturday night. So basically, the test was made easier. And how much easier, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I do remember the time that the RTLC apparently made it easier for people to pass a knowledge test.
Right.
And I also think it's the case that the test for private hire driving is actually easier than the test for public hire. Because public hire, you're simply sat on you're sat on the side of the road. Somebody gets in, and you're expected to know where it is they're actually going to. Where private hire is a fixed pickup point, and it's a fixed pickup drop off. So apparently the test is easier for that. But I'm sure that hopefully somebody from the Road Transport Licensing Committee may well actually get in contact with you and may well answer some of the concerns I've got today, and maybe answer them questions as well. There's a lot of questions to be asked, I think. And
Barry, you were worried about your voice. Your voice is absolutely fine.
Yeah, I was poorly a couple of weeks ago. I had laryngitis, and I couldn't say that a couple of weeks ago, but I'm getting back to normal now. Listen, Andy, I'm glad I rang in. It's a sensitive subject, but I do appreciate you taking the call.
We appreciate you bringing it up as well. Thanks for cluing us in on that. Thank you, Barry. Good to hear from you. Here's Doug with us now. Hello, Doug.
Good afternoon. Barry is so right when he said our politicians don't listen, and that's one of the major reasons why this island is in such a mess today. And wanted to get on about the housing. Yeah. In the 70s, 80s, there was a similar problem, and people could not afford the homes. Ballacurry had the answer. Plots for sale. And it was as simple as that. People could get their own, have a house built to their own plan, employ their own builder, and, it just took off from there. There's Ballarlock in Andreas, Kerracruin in Kirkmichael, the Meadows, Kirkmichael. All of these followed on from that one initiative. I've spoken on a number of occasions over the past 10 years. Why haven't we reintroduced it? I spoke to John Wannenberg about it, and he seemed quite interested. I've spoken to who's the housing minister now?
David Ashford, is it?
David Ashford. And they've done nothing about it.
The thing is, Doug, we always get warm words and hand-wringing about all this. But, I mean, what needs to be done? I mean, when you say the Ballycurry scheme is very well known, so everybody bought a plot of land. Did you have to buy a house? You couldn't just sit on the land, could you? You had to do something with it.
There were rules and regulations, and some of them were abused, one has to say, because overnight, suddenly every other man that had a bit of money became a property developer. But from that, there are a lot of people, I know up north here, who are living in houses who never thought they would be able to afford a house. And there are some wonderful kit houses on the go. And I'm sure the government should have provided cheap plots for genuine first-time people that wanted to be homeowners.
Do you remember what you had to do to prove you were a first-time buyer to get those plots?
I don't think that's entered into it back in those days. The plots for sale, I believe they're about £6,000 a time at the time in Ballarlock. And you just went along, you bought a plot, and as I say, you got on with it. And many of the lads in the building trade helped each other. And then, of course, Canbar came along, and they built, I don't know how many houses, lots of them in the Meadows in Kirkmichael, and in something or other Veg in Andrews as well.
So Doug, what's your message to politicians and would-be politicians before the election then?
Well, a bit like the taxi driver just said, listen to the public and act on it. We've had zero leadership from our politicians this year, the Chief Minister, and its leadership, and stop some of these ridiculous schemes. 4-foot wall in Ramsey as sea protection. You know, what planet are they living on?
Okay.
Anyway.
Doug, good. We appreciate your call today. Thanks for that, Doug, and make sure you keep reminding us of it. Thanks for calling.
Right, cheers then.
13 minutes to 1.
Visit Ramsey Art Gallery for a fabulous range of top brand watches and stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course our gallery of prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite the RNLI shop.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Bell-Dorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws, to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company. Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
Big Red Storage in Tremode and Ronaldsway offers secure self-storage units in various sizes with ground floor options and 24/7 access. Check offers and prices using our online space calculator at bigred.im or call 640040.
Many people are struggling. You can help by volunteering or making a donation to Isle of Man Food Bank, whether it be food or essential items or financial support. Please call 646 999, brought to you by Descon Office Interiors.
No matter how much you need to dig or how much you want to dump, Fox Group Isle of Man offer an extensive range of plant hire, long-term lease and sales. We're the island's exclusive supplier for Louis Gong excavators with immediate delivery. Our machinery comes with a complete service package with finance plan options. Call John on 458946 to discuss your plant needs. Fox Group Isle of Man, part of the Fox Group of companies.
With the general election just over 2 months away, Agenda will be focusing on what we can reasonably expect to see in prospective MHK's manifestos. How should our expectations differ between sitting MHK's election promises and those entering politics for the first time? Is it fair to blame the civil service for government failures, and how much of that blame should be placed on outgoing MHK's shoulders? Lots to contemplate on Agenda this evening at 6:30pm on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. If this is the worst government we've ever had, should we be more careful in choosing our MHKs for the next 5 years?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's 11 minutes before 1. This coming Thursday, we're talking about the Ravens, FC Isle of Man. Chair of the Ravens, David Pope, is on, also the chief exec, the finance man Russ Kent. So we've been talking about FC Isle of Man and the future for the Ravens this coming Thursday. Next week, on Wednesday, going to be live at Castle Rushen High School, 22nd that is. On the 23rd, I'm going to jail. Live from the Isle of Man prison on Thursday 23rd. That's what, a week on Thursday will be at the Isle of Man prison. And the week after that, the Chief Constable is going to be on. Russ Foster will be on. So FC Isle of Man, Castle Rushen High School, the prison and the Chief Constable. And Julian's with us now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. What a lovely day. 18 Celsius at the moment at the airport. I think 19 in Douglas. So very pleasant out there, I think.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, I seem to remember that TT week was a bit of a washout. So I think we're
well, they had a great time for the Southern 100 anyway, didn't they?
Oh, it's amazing. It's the best one in years. I remember one time, I think they still ran it years ago, and it was in heavy rain. But that was the time when they used to have wet tyres that they could use. Speaking of the weather, just a thing on computer modelling. I notice the BBC have got a news item that the title is "More than 2,700 people may have died in exceptional May and June heat waves in England and Wales." The figure comes from Imperial College London's computer modelling. The study uses death records from previous years to model or estimate how many there might have been in May and June of 2026. How many mays and mights and estimates was there then, Andy? I think I lost count in that.
Well, it sounds like, I saw that. It sounds like somebody's fishing for something somewhere, and you just wonder what the point is that they make. People always, people do die of heat-related conditions, but normally they've got underlying problems. Just like people die during the winter. People who've got they call pneumonia the old man's friend, because it carries people off gently. So people die in the cold and people die in the heat, but normally there's something underlying.
That's right. I noticed also, if you talk about modelling, I noticed when Devon Watson was on the other day, he was saying about, how the storms are getting worse and da-da-da. I noticed that the Isle of Man government, their planning policy statement for flood planning guidance and flood risk assessment, they use JBA risk management. They state in their About page, JBA uses scientific modelling and analytics to help insurers, governments and financial institutions in catastrophic climate change. So we've got kind of two things going on here. They both all seem to be going towards this modelling side of things. And when you look at JBA, when you look at their modelling, what they tend to do is they tend to have an assumption, do the model, and then they carry it forward regardless of what the historical record's telling us. And I think I said to you the other day, we had horrendous storms. We had cars up to their axles in seawater on Strand Street in 1925, which has not happened since, and the entire length of the Douglas Promenade under several feet of water. And it kind of, if you just look at the evidence right in front of your face, you kind of think, well, actually, when did we last have anything of that proportion there?
Well, the issue, Julian, is that we, the public, are the ones in the middle, because we're in the middle of, the government on one side, industry and commerce on the other side, and they've all got computer modelling that they do between them. And remember, nowadays, society, particularly Western society, is very risk averse, because there may be insurance claims and this, that and the other in the middle. So you can forgive people for being risk averse, but the trouble is that we're caught in the middle, Julian.
Yeah, and also you notice that there's this very fast rollout of AI with the artificial intelligence computers, which seem to if you just take what they say to start with, if you actually start probing, they actually end up quite often doing a 180-degree turn on their first assertion when you start asking questions. And I noticed on Manx Radio, actually, from the Energy and Sustainability Centre thing they had on Friday, Ralph Peake was talking about renewables should stand on their own merits. He was also asked about attending the MIMA consenting hearings, to which he said, that's not our role, that's for professionals, which is kind of an interesting statement to make. But you've got to ask the question, let's take renewables standing on their own merits. They never want to talk about all the ancillary massive amounts of equipment and huge amounts of money that's going to be required to integrate the DC energy that's coming off these things into our grid that we're used to using, or the wiring 13 miles to Douglas when a set of horse trams are going to be £2 to £3 million a mile. So you've got this thing where we seem to be at the altar of all these computer models rather than actually looking at the... They say about misinformation and lack of information, but it seems to me that, say, for example, later on today at 4 o'clock at the MIMA public meeting, there's an awful lot of people in the public who've really educated themselves on an awful lot of things, and the questions are not being answered by the people that purport to be experts, but then say things like, that's not our role to attend MIMA meetings, that's for professionals.
And this is the whole issue that underlies this, Julian. The fact is that I'm a wide-eyed optimist as far as the public is concerned. I think the public need as much information as possible, and I think everybody needs to be as educated as possible so we can all make a judgment. And obviously we elect governments to make judgments for us. Industry and commerce will do what it does. The finance industry will do what it does. But remember, this is our life. This is the decisions that they make will impact our lives, and I do think we need to know more about it. And it's almost as though somebody somewhere doesn't trust us with that information.
And you've got all the skewed pitch of the fact that gas is supposedly the thing that's leading all this expense, when actually there's massive layers of carbon taxes that are artificially jacking the price of gas up to try and make our electricity more expensive than it really is. And you keep having these human wars. So, Anyway, Thanks, Andy.
Good to hear from you. Thank you, Julian. We need small houses, says Texter 017, kit houses that they put up for homeless, and they're low price to build. Oh, the only people who benefit are the estate agents. Well, estate agents are humans. New build house prices are kept artificially high to stop ordinary people buying them so that big businesses can buy them for peanuts and rent them out. A house in Laxey, says Jules, had 17 viewings booked in. It sold in a week. Locals don't stand a chance. Ronaldsway ATC, is the radar operating correctly as the dish wasn't revolving when I was down there the other day, says Andy on WhatsApp. Right, back tomorrow, another open line, text, email, call on WhatsApp. Thanks to Donna on the phones today. Enjoy your Monday.
WINT